Hi Halloweenies, I'm Ozzy the Horror Cub. Take a trip with me to Haddonfield because it's time to review 1978's classic, Halloween. Let's get into it. The film that basically pushed the slasher genre forward, the one that cemented itself as a true classic amongst a myriad of different copycats. Sure, you had your Friday the 13th and your Nightmare on Elm Streets, but there's just something classic about Michael Myers and his pale white emotionless face stalking babysitters on Halloween. After all, that's what this film was actually going to be called, The Babysitter Murders. It was producer Irwin Yablans that had the idea to change it to Halloween. No film had been set on this holiday prior to, and it was perfect. I mean, you had Black Christmas 1974 that had that similar idea of Billy going into a sorority house and killing the sorority sisters, but this was a masked maniac escaping 15 years later after killing his sister in 1963 to go hunt a random girl in Haddonfield. This low-budget film was produced for only $300,000 in the dead of spring in South Pasadena, yet I buy this as Haddonfield, Illinois. Yes, Haddonfield is a fictional town, but in my heart it's real. The second I see that title card play and it says Haddonfield, Illinois, I just feel like I'm there. I even disregard all the palm trees. One day I will visit Laurie Strode's stoop, and I will sit there with my pumpkin, waiting for Annie to pick me up. Hopefully Don't Fear the Reaper's playing. Produced for only $300,000, this movie would go on to make millions. And spawn a franchise, a continuity that doesn't even make sense. But we live for the Halloween multiverse. Directed by John Carpenter, co-written by Deborah Hill, this movie has everything. It has suspense, it has great lighting, it has great atmosphere, great music. There's nothing that I can't already say about Halloween that hasn't already been said. This is the seminal slasher that launched the slasher industry forward, took everything that films pioneering it, leading up to it, had done. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas. It took horror and brought it into the suburbs. It brought it into a place where you thought you were safe. And you know what? Where Michael Myers is lurking around every corner, you are never safe because the shape could be anywhere. Michael Myers is the essence of evil. He is the boogeyman. I don't need an origin story to tell me why Michael Myers is evil. He just is. One Halloween night, he snaps and he kills his sister. That's what happens in 1963. Little Mikey Myers is running around and he butchers his sister Judith. By the way, her boyfriend lasted what, 4 seconds with her? I have to set you up and tell you why I love Halloween so much. So when I was 8, it was around summertime, that's when I first became introduced to the Halloween series. I discovered a VHS, it had Blockbuster on the side of it, and on the back, it featured a picture of Michael Myers dressed as a ghost. I was so curious as to why this person was wearing a ghost costume that I had to know more. Not only this, but this was the exact same summer that Halloween H2O was premiering. Why did they premiere Halloween H2O in the dead of summer? We'll never know. Yet here we are. Seeing the advertisements for Halloween H2O and finding that VHS with the shape dressed as a ghost, I had to figure out what this series was all about. So I popped in Halloween with my grandmother, and my god, this movie was a thrill ride. Number one, I couldn't even get past the daytime scenes. That's how much it scared me and stayed with me. The daytime scenes are so effective in John Carpenter's masterpiece because he knows how to craft suspense. He knows how to bring you into this world and show you all the locations, and there's something sinister about knowing the locations of where you are because there's this evil force in Haddonfield that could pop up at any time and bring terror, and that's what I think is so effective in the first Halloween. It's not just cheap jump scares, he sets up everything so perfectly. You're able to see Haddonfield, you're able to see the houses that we're at, you're able to see the Wallace house, the Doyle house, you're able to see everything so that you know where Michael could be or couldn't be, and I think that's great because he could be anywhere and it adds to that mystery of the boogeyman. Starring Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasence, Jamie Lee obviously being cast because her mother Janet Leigh was the main star in Psycho, so this would be a draw to this film. Peter Kushner was originally offered the role as Dr. Sam Loomis, however Donald Pleasence was cast, and you know what? Donald Pleasence gives it his all to the Halloween series. It's Shakespeare in his mouth. Everything that he says about the boogeyman and the personification of Michael and his evilness and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, you believe everything that this man is saying, everything that he's saying to Marion Chambers at the very start of the film. They're trying to decide if he should be moved into a maximum facility or if he should stay at Smiths Grove Sanitarium, which is minimum security. Like I said, I couldn't even get past the daytime scenes. It was around the point where Laurie bumps into Sheriff Brackett that I told my grandmother, I think we have to stop. She looked looked at me and said, it's only gonna get worse once it becomes night. And you know what? She's not lying. This movie is a roller coaster. Sure, it's simple, but that's why it's so effective. Minimal gore, because it uses your mind to fill in all those gaps. You are truly terrified in this film, waiting to see where Michael will strike. You've got a great cast of characters. So Laurie Strode, number one. She's our final girl in this movie, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, wardrobe by J.C. Penney. Love, love, love. I think she was the only one in this film that really got a wardrobe, besides Michael Myers, which they just took a William Shatner mask, spray painted it, removed the sideburns, and bam, you got Michael. Jamie just plays such an effortless final girl. She's brave, she's resilient, she's shy, she's cunning. She uses the world around her to help her. A great example of this is when she's being trapped inside the closet by Michael, and what does she do? She uses the coat hanger to first trap herself into the closet to secure herself, and then uses another coat hanger to untangle it to poke Michael's eye out, seize his knife, and stab him. The only problem with Laurie is she keeps dropping that knife, but she's here to protect Tommy and Lindsay, and you know what? She's here to protect all of us. She is a final girl to end all final girls. I mean, Laurie Strode is pretty much the archetypal final girl. Leading up to this, sure, you had Jess from Black Christmas, but Jess wasn't virginal, and I think that's the thing with Halloween. Halloween did establish the rules of the horror movie. Like what Randy would say, you never say, "I'll be right back." That's one thing that Bob says in this film, and look, he ends up dead by Michael's hands. You can't smoke or do drugs. That's something that Halloween clearly establishes. And you can't have sex. All these rules would basically propel forward in films like Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Before you know it, these would become part of the slasher formula. And it wasn't until 1996's Scream that that formula had to be broken and a meta lens had to be put onto the horror genre. And that's because all the films up until that point were just trying to imitate the success of Halloween. Because here you have a small motion picture, $300,000 that Mustafa Akkad allowed them to produce. It goes on to make millions. People are thinking, oh, this is all I need to make a movie. I just need 22 to 28 days. I just need a couple teenagers and a guy in a mask to stalk them. You need so much more. You need Deborah Hill's writing, because number one, Deborah Hill knows how to write for strong female characters. I love the way Annie and Laurie are written. Annie is Laurie's best friend. You've also got Linda, she's in there too, totally. Linda's the friend that's just here for a good time. She's dating Bob. And Annie's the friend that just tells it like it is. She's Sheriff Brackett's daughter, and you know what? Let's face it, I'd be an Annie, and you know what? I fully support it. The premise of Halloween is so simple, that's why I think it works to its benefit. Laurie Strode is a babysitter. We all understand the ubiquity of babysitting. Everyone has babysat. We also understand the fact that Haddonfield could be any town USA. It feels like basically it could be our suburb, so this could be anybody that this could be thrust into happening to. Laurie is just the unfortunate victim of fate, and that's something that I love about this movie. It really talks about the idea of fate, and are we destined to a fate? Was Laurie always destined to drop off that key at the Myers house? Because 15 years earlier, Michael butchered his sister in that very house. Now it's Halloween night and he's come home to kill. He sees Laurie, she's singing her fabulous song. You know, John Carpenter asked her to just make up a song on the spot. This was like her first day on set, and she makes up that, "I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us." And I love that song. To me, that is one of my favorite parts of the movie, because when Michael walks into the frame of her singing that song, and of course she doesn't see because she's walking to school, but it's just so beautiful and it's so iconic because she's singing this love song about wishing that she had somebody all to herself, and here's Michael Myers and he's viewing this perspective totally different than she is, not in this loving way that she wants with Ben Tramer. He's viewing this as, this is my ultimate target. And of course, if you watch the sequels moving forward, 1981 Rick Rosenthal's Halloween 2, we later find out that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are connected. However, in the first Halloween, in the first original John Carpenter's 1978 classic, we do not know that these two characters are brother and sister. They are just total strangers. Now, some people like that. Some people think that it plays really great to the story and to the aesthetic of the boogeyman, and knowing that when Michael disappears at the end of this movie, he can be headed to anywhere at any time. The sibling connection, though, you get to the fact that Michael's not going to attack you unless you're part of his bloodline, or you're impacting him to get to his bloodline. So I see where people have the disconnect in regards to it. It's just the fact of the matter is, we've had them as siblings since 1981. It's been a hell of a long time to try and erase that continuity from our minds, and I know the new Halloween movies, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, is doing that. However, to me, I kind of do like them as brother and sister. However, we're going to look at this film as a standalone. This was just a random night that they ran into each other. They're not brother and sister. However, it does play still with the idea of fate, because was Laurie always destined to this fate? I think she's always destined though to be a survivor. She's destined to be a fighter, and she proves it time and time again, because you know what? She's not going down without a fight. She's the only person, she's the only one amongst all of her friends that understands that something is off, because she keeps seeing Michael throughout the school day. She sees him in that lecture, she sees him when she's with her friends, when Annie shuts out, "Hey jerks, feet kills." She sees him at the hedges. Laurie knows that something is off, and it's because that she's paying attention. She's saved, in a sense. All of her other friends, what are they worried about? They're worried about drinking and having a good time. Laurie is basically seeing the surroundings around her, because what I love so much about the horror genre is that it's really about outsiders, and Halloween has two outsiders. You've got one on the outside is Michael Myers. He's looking into the perspective of Haddonfield, the community of Haddonfield. He's an outsider in the fact that he killed his sister, he's been taken out of society. But then you have somebody like Laurie Strode, who's also an outsider and who's been taken out of society because she's that shy girl, she's so reserved, so she's so meek and mild, and it's two outsiders, good and evil, that are now opposed to each other on Halloween night. And I think that that's the most iconic thing in this film. It's the fact that it's set on one simplistic night. It's Halloween. How iconic. The greatest night of the year, if you ask me. Now, Laurie is off to babysit on Halloween night. She's gonna be babysitting little Tommy Doyle, and Tommy Doyle is a firm believer in the boogeyman. Her best friend Annie is babysitting across the street at Lindsay Wallace's house. So these two are gonna be really close to each other on the night of Halloween, and we're gonna see all the events basically happen within this 1 block radius between Tommy and Lindsay's house. And that's where all the shenanigans go down, because Michael's been stalking her the entire day. First of all, the fact that he's standing inside of her backyard and he just disappears, blink of the eye. It's that whole supernatural edge to Michael Myers. Is he supernatural? Is he man? Is he both? And I think that's something that the idea of Halloween does so well. You don't really know if this is a man or not. Yes, it's a man, it's flesh and blood, we see him grow up, but there's something different to him. Why does he disappear? Why does he move the way he moves? Look at the second that he kills Bob, and he stabs Bob and he pins him up. Such great strength, number one. So the strength, the fact that he does that classic Michael Myers head tilt, it's almost like he's trying to understand what he's doing, or he's trying to analyze his art. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's just commending his artwork. Michael is sick, and that leads me to the fact that he dresses up like a ghost to kill Linda, because Annie is taken out. Let me tell you something. Annie being taken out in that car scene is simply iconic, because what the film does, it builds suspension. Annie could have been killed at any point. Annie could have been killed when she was washing her clothes. She could have been killed the first time that she went to the garage. Michael is building suspense. Michael could kill these kids whenever he wants, but in the first movie, what I love so much about Michael Myers as the Shape is that he is a stalker. He's always watching from the shadows, and I know a lot of people, when they watch this movie with a modern horror movie lens, they're bored of this approach. They want to see just, you know, butchering. They want to see Halloween kills, yeah! And I think that's great, but the thing is, I don't think that's scary. I think what's scary is that we are watching a man sit there and ponder how he's going to take out his victims, and you don't know where he's going to be or where he's going to show up. The scene where Annie's talking on the phone to Paul, he's in and out of the shadows. He could be anywhere. Poor Lester. But when he does take out Annie in the car, it's so unexpected. The sound effect, the cues when Michael pops up out of his hiding spots, simply iconic. And I think a lot of these sounds are missing from the future Halloween sequels. I really feel Halloween 2 has them, but I feel like they start losing them after you get to Halloween 4. It's those little sound effects, not just the Halloween main theme that really makes up the Michael Myers character, but those little sound effects, that little that adds so much to the jump scare of Michael Myers popping out at you. And I think that's something that future Halloween sequels have been lacking, and I really wish they would bring that back. I also love the fact that you don't really see Michael's mask. It is hidden in darkness, and everything is draped in this beautiful giallo lighting. You can really see that Carpenter was inspired by European horror. Everything has this beautiful blue ambient light to it, and the way that it's lit and how it's peering in, it looks like moonlight. I think that's something that the Halloween sequels don't try and live up to as well. I really think that Dean Cundey, the cinematographer of this film, and John Carpenter, they worked so well together because they understood how the camera worked and how the camera was able to tell a story, and how lighting and sound and editing can help tell that story as well. It was a group of college friends that just came together to make one great hell of a movie. I think that's what's lacking from all the other films, is that they're trying to analyze what the success, what the lightning of the bottle was with the original Halloween, but I think it was just that. It was, you had a group of people that were all working together. You know, you even had like Jamie Lee Curtis was helping tear down and repaint the Meyer house, help it get ready for certain shots. So this was everybody working together. This was all hands on deck. You know, this was a minimum budget film. You even had, spoiler alert, Robert Englund, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger. He was still building his fame and legacy. He wasn't Freddy yet. He doesn't become Freddy until 1984. He was on the set because this is happening in May as they're filming. Yes, it premieres in October, and yes, it's set in October, but the movie is filmed in the dead of May. He was actually on set throwing leaves, dispersing leaves on set to help give it that fall vibe. Disregard the palm trees in the background. But I always thought that was so cool that Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, was on the set. And something else that's really cool too, that if you watch the TV cut of this film, because when this was shot and re-edited for TV in 1981, they had to film additional runtime. So some of the additional runtime that they had to film was Laurie getting ready to go babysit Tommy Doyle. In this, Linda comes to the Strode house. They use the interior of the family room of the Strode house. Now this isn't the same Strode house that we saw in the original cut of Halloween. They're actually using 1428 Elm Street's house interior. 1428 Elm Street, if you don't know, is the house of Nancy Thompson in the Elm Street series. So the Halloween series is so intimately connected to the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Not only that, but Tommy and Lindsay's house is only a block away from 1428 Elm Street. So it's crazy how close all these locations are. I have to go. I have to see all these locations just to point them out. Nichols Hardware is still there. It's actually right beside the Myers house because they had to move it. And that's another thing. Michael steals that mask and rope and knives from Nichols Hardware, and he's plotting some sinister things to do to these kids that night. One of the sinister things that he does is go after Linda. Linda and Bob, they're just there for a good time. After Annie's been taken out, they go to Lindsay's house. Lindsay's across the street though. She's being babysat by Laurie Strode. So they're going off, they're having their Halloween shenanigans. Michael is roaming through the house. He kills Bob. Bob's kill is one of the most iconic kills in this film. But I think the scene that occurs next, with him draping himself with his ghost costume, and you've got Linda in bed smoking a cigarette, you know what? Every single time that she says totally, you have to do a shot when this movie is playing, you will have the time of your life. She totally says it a lot. But when she reveals down the blanket and she looks at Michael thinking that it's Bob, and he's wearing the ghost costume with the glasses, and she says, "See anything you like?" I just think that's so iconic, and the fact that he's just staring right back at her, it was that classic suspense and dread and not knowing what's gonna happen. And as she turns her back to him, he starts approaching her, ditches the sheet, and we realize this is the shape and he's gonna get her, and he starts choking her out with that phone cord. This was so cool. I mean, PJ Soles is so iconic, especially for the 70s. And I love that red hat that she's always wearing. You can even spot it in 1976's Carrie. But with all of Laurie's friends taken out one by one, Michael takes this as another opportunity to be his sick, sadistic, lovable self. Love Michael Myers. I love his creativity. He's all about Halloween and inspiring one good scare. I think I've had my share. But he's setting up the Wallace house like a haunted house because he wants Laurie to walk into this situation. He's even stolen his sister Judith's tombstone, his sister who he killed 15 years previous. He's taken the tombstone, draped Annie's body across the bed, and now she's sitting there like this demented puppet of his sister. You've got Linda stacked in one of the closets, Bob hanging from the rafters. Laurie is losing her shit. She's literally just tucked in Tommy and Lindsay for the night. She's got the keys to the house in her pocket. The poor thing is walking across the street, and we know that she shouldn't go over to that house with those fabulous bell-bottom pants, but here she walks to that house. It's that dread, it's that suspense, it's the notes of the music that's playing. You know, I heard a rumor that Carpenter actually played this to an executive at 20th Century Fox, and he played it to them without the music. And the woman said, this isn't even scary. So that confirms it too for me, that the music really does add an atmosphere to Halloween. And it's so simplistic. Piano score, it's that minimalism, and Carpenter wrote that score within 3 days. Laurie's theme is honestly one of my favorite tracks, and whenever I'm trying to get into the fall mood, I literally just blast that song on my headphones, and I just go for a walk around the neighborhood and pretend that I'm in a Carpenter film. I pretend that I'm shy and innocent like Laurie. Laurie walks over to the house, she sees all of her friends butchered. This is where she starts going into final girl mode because Dean Cundy, again, genius with cinematography, everything that that camera does, whether it be that tracking shot, that intro tracking shot when the film first starts, after it pops over that jack-o'-lantern, it's effective and haunting. And the next scene where Laurie has been pinned up against a wall after she's witnessed all of her friends' death, you see the light slowly progress up, and you see Michael's mask appear out of the darkness because our eyes are now being adjusted to the darkness of the room. And when you see Michael's mask pop up, you have that beautiful beautiful Carpenter score that peers through as Michael launches his knife at Laurie and Laurie falls down the staircase. It's those genius shots that really make Halloween. Then you've got that shot of Michael just standing at the staircase, and it's that ambient blue lighting that's lighting up the banisters around him. It is terrifying as hell. And he's descending that staircase like a shark, knowing that that's his victim and that he's gonna get her, and that he's trapped her into this house of horror. But talking about Dean Cundey, that just got me thinking about the opening of the movie too, because not only is that tracking shot genius, we also have that iconic Halloween pumpkin opening. The fact that Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 open with a pumpkin is just genius and sinister, and of course this wasn't a real pumpkin, because this movie wasn't filmed in season, and I think that adds to the effect of it. And when you look at the nose of the pumpkin and you look at the eye, it almost looks like Michael holding that blade. It creates that uneasy feeling that anything can happen. It's such a sinister film. The second that you start rolling this film and the first frame starts, it feels dark, it feels ominous, it feels wrong. And when you see that child's hand grab that knife, I know you don't know it's a child at that point. It's not until the tableau that when the parents unmask Michael and you find out, holy shit, this is a kid, that you realize anything can happen in this film. I don't know, whenever I see Michael's hand as a kid, and that's Deborah Hill's hand if you didn't even know that fact, but whenever I see that hand, I just get sick to my stomach because I always remember that feeling of who I was when I was 8 years old initially watching this film, and being so sick to my stomach in the fact that I couldn't believe that a kid was committing these atrocities. I was watching that with my grandmother and I'm just like, oh my god, this is a 6-year-old boy doing this? So to me, even watching this to this day, I still go back to that feeling of uneasiness because that's what it does to you with the cinematography, the lighting, the sound design. All of it creates the boogeyman that is the shape that is Michael Myers. And now he's after our poor virginal Laurie Strode. All she wants to do is have a date with Ben Tramer, and this girl is now being put through the Slasher Olympics. She does that fabulous run across the street, and this is where Michael is pursuing her. It's just this sound, the dunt, dunt. It's like the Jaws theme. It's, you know that that killer is there and he's coming after you, and Laurie's trying to get the keys to the house, and she's trying to get the front door open of Tommy's house, and she can't do it because she can't find the keys. She's trying to wake up Tommy. Tommy's asleep. He's coming ever so slow to try and get the front door. Michael's coming from the Wallace house. Nobody is helping. I guess maybe caring for each other is just too 1969. And in 1978 in Haddonfield, it was rough out there at 9:30 at night. No one was gonna help you if you were screaming for your life. Tommy miraculously comes to the front door. Laurie saves the day, thinking smart, being the resourceful queen that she is. She takes that knitting needle crochet and she crochets Michael right in the neck. She is not gonna let Mr. Myers stand up against her. She is babysitting and she is defending these kids. But Tommy tells her the most important rule: you can't kill the boogeyman. And this is where we see Michael ascend the staircase. Throughout this entire night, Dr. Loomis, played by Donald Pleasance, has been running around town with Sheriff Brackett, and they've been trying to look for Michael everywhere. They go back to his old house. This is where Dr. Loomis gives that iconic speech about Michael's eyes, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. You really do get the characterization of that this was a man that tried to stop this force of evil from coming through, and nobody understands what Dr. Loomis is going through. Nobody understands that Michael is evil, that he is the personification of evil on two legs. They just see him as a mental patient that killed his sister when he was 6. There's nothing more, there's nothing less to him, because he's had this sense of catatonia to him ever since then. But Dr. Loomis knows that he's biding his time, that this is all fake, and he's playing with them. And everything has been leading to this night, Halloween 1978, because here he is, coming after Laurie Strode. This is where Laurie has the smarts to hide in the closet, takes Michael down with that coat hanger attack. Smart move, but then you drop the knife right there, Laurie. Oh my god. Then you've got that classic Michael Myers sit up. Oh my god, and the head tilt. If you listen to the audience reactions of people that were inside the movie theater when they saw this film in 1978, they are losing their mind. Where Dr. Loomis comes, saves the day as Michael Myers is about to be unmasked because him and Laurie are going at it. There's a little bit of a choking fight that's going down in Michael's face, and you know what? He's normal. Michael's not a monster. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's hideous. Well, that's because Laurie used a coat hanger and just jabbed his eye out. That's why his eye looks like that. If Laurie didn't jab out his eye, he would just look like a normal human being. Everyone's like, oh, he's monstrous. Well, that's because she just jabbed out his freaking eye, man. Of course he's gonna look like that. It's bulging out of his socket. But Dr. Loomis has been scanning the subdivision, looking for Michael. This is where he sees Tommy and Lindsay run out because Laurie just told them, go get help, run. Tommy and Lindsay sounding off that alarm is what brings Dr. Loomis up to the second floor of the Doyle house. He takes 6 shots to Michael. Michael falls off the balcony and is gone. That's what I think is so haunting about Halloween. This movie was not set up to be a sequel. Sequels didn't exist at this point. This movie was supposed to be a standalone ghost story. And when Michael vanishes and you have all the shots of all the locations that he was in previously throughout the film, and you can hear his iconic breathing over the Halloween theme, you really do get this feeling of this omnipotent, omniscient presence that could be anywhere, and it's watching you, and it's always watching you, because this wasn't a man, it was the boogeyman. This is a truly haunting, terrifying ride. Halloween is one of the best slasher films to ever exist. This is suspension candy. It's minimal gore, the great film to introduce people to the slasher genre. This is the film that ignited the slasher genre, stole my heart. Laurie Strode, there's not enough things that I can say about you. I love you to death, Jamie. Jamie Lee Curtis, you are an icon, you are a legend. I can't wait to see you in Halloween Kills. I love the fact that we're bringing back all these characters from Halloween 1978 into Halloween Kills, like Lonnie Lamb, like Tommy Doyle, like Lindsay Wallace, and we're getting to see them grown up and dealing with the trauma of what occurred in 1978, because that's what the whole Halloween 2018 new trilogy series has been focused on, is trauma, and can we escape our own fate? Or does fate lead to our trauma? It's a really interesting concept that David Gordon Green has come up with, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out in the new film coming out this October the 15th. I love the original Halloween. This is one of the greatest slasher films ever to exist. That's all due to John Carpenter, Mustafa Akkad, Deborah Hill, Irwin Yablans, Jamie Lee Curtis, everybody, the cast, the crew, they came together, they made an independent horror film that broke the mold, that was lightning in a bottle. You can't create the success that was the original Halloween. 10 out of 10, you're gonna love this ride. You're gonna love the fact that it's set on Halloween. This is gonna be one of your favorite slasher movies. Tell me, do you love John Carpenter's 1978 classic Halloween? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to do the movie review for Halloween 2. Halloween 2 is one of my favorite sequels. Rick Rosenthal is a genius of carrying on John Carpenter's legacy. These two movies were meant to see as back-to-back double features. Until next time, stay spooky.